to the Tory party in a cosy little relationship that is all above board, nothing illegal there. Goodness me, no. Why would anyone think otherwise? That and more coming up with me, Nick Abbott, after the new news at 10 on LBC.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 10 o'clock, an investigation has now begun into how officials handled this week's wildfires in Hawaii, which have now killed at least 80 people. A member of the Hawaiian Congress says they underestimated both the spread of the flames on the island of Maui and also how lethal they could be. The King and Queen have sent their deepest possible sympathy to the families of the victims through a letter to President Biden. Hundreds of people are still unaccounted for. NBC's Steve Patterson is in Maui and says there's a particular area they're focusing on.
The state has admitted that key sirens did not sound, alerting people to the danger that would have happened here. Yes, text messages went out, TV alerts went out, radio alerts pertain to have gone out. But that was after people lost power, so it was very hard for those folks to get those messages.
2 people are still missing and at least 6 have died after a migrant boat crossing the English Channel capsized. More than 50 have been rescued following the sinking off Sangatte, according to the French authorities. A search and rescue operation has involved 5 French ships, 2 British vessels and a helicopter. The company in charge of the BB Stockholm barge in Dorset says work has begun to resolve the issue of Legionella bacteria in the water supply. 39 migrants had to be moved off the craft last night. CMT, which has the contract to operate it, is insisting the health of those on board is of the utmost importance. But the local mayor, Carolyn Parks, thinks the money being spent on the barge could be put to better use.
What I'd love them to do would be to instead invest that money in the asylum and immigration system, put an office in Calais so people can apply in Calais where it's safe.
The Police Service of Northern Ireland has confirmed 200 officers and staff weren't told for almost a month about documents containing their names being stolen. A laptop and radio were also taken from a car in Newton Abbey on the 6th of July. A separate data breach this week saw the details of more than 10,000 officers and staff published online. And one of the experts who helped steer the UK through the pandemic has died following a cycling accident in Italy. Susanna Boddy was 27 years old and worked as the lead health data scientist at Number 10. It's also being reported she suffered fatal injuries near Lake Garda on Saturday morning. LBC weather, showers easing tonight but continuing for some western areas overnight with a low of 12, and there'll be more showers tomorrow, the heaviest of them being in Scotland with a high of 24 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Tim Daly.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbott.
Hello, boys. Well, let's get back to it.
Yes, terrible news from Hawaii, and the newsman there said that the King and Queen have sent their condolences. And I thought,
What?
the Queen? How did she manage that? Oh, I thought the other... Right. Well, not my Queen. Ooh, no. There's only one Queen for me. Not you, Elton. Martin texts, these are texts and tweets and such from last night. Martin texts, we should all have positivity in Rishi Sunak's integrity and ability while achieving his number one priority. Now say that 3 times quickly, he says. We should all have positivity in Rishi Sunak's integrity and ability while achieving his number one priority.
Under my leadership, the government's priorities are your priorities.
You still got that the wrong way around, mate. Where are you, by the way? On holiday? What? Alex says, did she not she? This is in reference to Mrs. M, who we were talking about fleetingly last night. Not frequently. Fleetingly. You remember Theresa May, don't you? yeah, that's her. She is the person who had to help Donald Trump down that very, very scary 1-foot ramp.
Oh, shut up!
Yeah, clinging on to her for dear life. Still haven't forgiven you for that, Mrs M. You should have just let him careen down that ramp unaided. Alex texts, did she, Mrs M, not contribute to the Windrush people being stripped of their citizenship and rights and organising mobile billboards telling foreigners to bleep off back home and conjuring up a magic money tree to buy off the DUP nutters? The DUP nutters. Well, you may think that, Alex. I couldn't possibly comment. Lauren texts, you wonder why this country makes such bad choices? We have a royal family, mate, says Lauren. We're supposed to call Charles Windsor Your Majesty. Can you tell me anything majestic about that tall drink of water? Can you explain why people of this family are given nominal charge of military regiments, yet the people here lap it up, says Lauren. Well, there was an interesting article in... it was on the subject of Boris Johnson, actually. He had another one of his ludicrous columns in the Daily Mail today. Does anybody actually read that stuff? I mean, if I had given him whatever amount of money that they persuaded him to come and write his scribbles for them instead of any other right-wing publication, I'd be pulling my hair out because it's just not very good. Almost as though he's not actually putting in any effort at all. But this was the... where is it? This is... really not ready. A.C. Grayling is a philosopher, master of New College of the Humanities and a supernumerary fellow of St Anne's College at Oxford University. He said, Boris Johnson has polluted and degraded an already dysfunctional political order further. His appointments to the House of Lords are proof of what can go badly wrong when an unfit person gets hold of power and uses it exactly as an arrogant fool would use it. Unfit, Bodge. Not that way. His House of Lords appointees themselves have made the mistake of choosing to be the targets of mockery and disdain for the rest of their lives by accepting his appointment of them, thus allowing themselves to be perpetually lingering examples of the stench of his occupancy of office leaves behind.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
I bet the cleaners are still trying to beat the stench out of the sofa. Oh, no, Fishy Sunak would have moved in his own sofa, wouldn't he? Fishy Sunak wouldn't have put his princeling bottom on any piece of furniture that had previously been sat on. But, and by the way, there is a certain individual who's gone missing. We have absolutely no idea where she is. I mean, she comes and picks up her paycheck right enough, but we still have no clue as to where she is, despite the fact that she said she was going to be leaving with immediate effect.
Bye-bye.
Thereby redefining the word immediate to mean at some point in the future, to be decided later. She was desperate to accept an appointment to the House of Lords and be the target of mockery and disdain for the rest of her life. Cruelly disappointed. Yeah, she's launched an investigation as to who is responsible, and the guilty parties will be punished, whether they like it or not. But they and he, says A.C. Grayling. They, the people in the House of Lords, that he stuck up the House of Lords, and he, Bodger Johnson, are also proof of a fact that of which we, the British people, should be profoundly ashamed. OK, here comes the part as to who is responsible for all this. You're not going to like it. Spoiler alert.
Warning, warning.
It's you. They and he are proof of a fact which we, the British people, should be profoundly ashamed, that enough of us were guilty of such poor judgment, inattention, ignorance and preparedness to be duped and used, allowing this to happen in the first place. Used, and not in a good way.
Disgusting.
This is where democracy cuts both ways, for in the end, how people use their votes, who they choose, and whether they vote tactically or tribally is down to them. So if they choose badly, they get what they deserve. And so we have been punished for the failure to be what a democracy has at the absolute minimum to be, a community of thoughtful and responsible voters. Thoughtful and responsible. I don't know who he's talking about, but it ain't us. We can, however, mention a couple of slightly mitigating factors, he says. It's not all our fault. Let us ask why so much influence has been exerted by a dishonest and ultra-partisan media owned by non-dom billionaires with a vested interest in destabilising the country so that their preferred version of anarcho-capitalism can flourish. And let us ask why social media has found the British population such a plastic, malleable, easy playground for its bubble-creating, conspiracy-promoting, false fact-spreading downside. Yeah. On Earth, we are only beaten as far as our gullibility is concerned by America.
The American dream is dead.
Is dead, yeah. Him and his dingling fans are making us look good. Ain't that right, Donny?
Oh, shut up!
Hey, your darling husband is going to jail, Melania.
I don't care.
She's not that bothered. Let us reflect on the answer, says A.C. Grayling, because well-informed and reflective people would not be so easily duped by either a dishonest press or unreliable and distorting social media. It must be that enough of the British population is insufficiently well-informed and insufficiently reflective, more bluntly, ignorant enough and unthinking enough to be ripe for serving as their dupes. How has this happened, he asks. Think. I want answers from you at the back, or you stay behind after class. He says, among a plethora of answers, let's focus on one very central one: the failure of our education system to achieve a good standard of active intelligence in enough of the population. By active intelligence, I mean the useful general knowledge and the constructive criticism, or scepticism rather, that prompts people to test claims and promises made by those who want their money or their votes. Trying to educate on the cheap, one teacher per 30 pupils, not valuing teachers enough to reward them for the vital work they do, not equipping schools and richly funding activities including trips abroad, incurs a terrible cost. The price we pay is careless voters, exploitable by a system and its career politician operatives into putting someone as grossly unfit as Boris Johnson into Downing Street, to say nothing of the inadequacy of the people such an individual surrounds himself with.
You're better informed than I am. I don't know anything.
For instance. He says to educate, classes need to consist of fewer than 10 pupils so that teachers have time to work with the individual grain of each pupil's mind and personality. Pupils should be active inquirers, not just passive learners, sit behind desks in a classroom. That means getting out and about. Doing, travelling, finding out, making. He says the value of musical education and art on general cognitive development, enhancing its capacities for success in maths and applied sciences, has been all but lost in the English education system. He says historical and geographical ignorance and wholly inadequate levels of competence in a second and third language make for narrow, parochial, limited mindsets. In conclusion, too many voters are insufficiently informed and reflective to vote other than tribally or self-interestedly in exploitable ways, and a large part of the reason for this is that our education system is too poorly funded to achieve in enough cases the kind of intellects that would be more resistant to such exploitation. Completely correct in every respect. None of the above, of course, relates to private education. In fact, he was pretty much describing private schools, where classes are 10 and less, so that teachers can deal with the pupils individually, and they get trips abroad and here, there and everywhere, and they're not just sat in serried ranks to learn stuff by rote, to regurgitate it back at an exam. None of the above relates to private education, just state education. And of course, the people who are responsible for the degradation of state schools send their children to private schools. Are you beginning to get it yet?
No.
0345 6060 973. And that Boris Johnson column, by the way, I mean, that was just... it's just a collection of tics and boosterish nonsense about being more like America. You know, what with their Apple computers and their Tesla cars. I'll save you the bother of reading it. And what he forgot to point out was that Apple products are made in China, and so are Tesla cars. So he just brays on in his usual style. I mean, so much that he didn't really have to write it. He could have just got an artificial intelligence robot to regurgitate a cocktail of his previous outpourings. What's interesting about the column is not the column itself, it's the reception that he got from what you would think would be his fans, the readers of the Daily Mail. Even they seem to have had enough of him. I looked at the column in the afternoon, and these are the genuine comments that were best rated. I haven't edited these in any way other than to take one comment out that is repeated. But these are from the best rated comments down. And I thought I'll keep reading them until I get to a positive one. And time just sort of ticked away. And I thought, well, how far down this list of hundreds of messages do I have to go before I get a positive response? It's incredible. They hate you, Boris Johnson. OK, from the best-rated comment of Boris Johnson's asinine column in the Mail, how this twerp ever got taken seriously as Prime Minister is beyond me. That was the best-rated comment. Followed by, you're a joke, mate. Followed by, please go away. Followed by, go away, no one is interested in your thoughts and opinions. Followed by, please just go away. There's a lot on that, sort of that ilk. Johnson, you are a dreamer who has messed up the UK now for the next 40 years, as if anyone still believes a single word this charlatan says about Brexit. So, Boris wants us to be like the US, where the ordinary people have no protections whatsoever. No labour laws, no food safety, no healthcare, just a few billionaires taking everything for themselves. No thanks. Then, what nonsense, Boris? Followed by, really, shrinking the economy 15% wasn't enough. He wants to do even more damage. Return to free trade with our nearest partners. Then, vote rejoin. Then, the rot set in under Thatcher. Every Prime Minister after has betrayed us. Our country has fallen. Indeed, the Western world has. The common denominator is greed. They're all guilty. Your vote is meaningless. Wow. There's a person who appears to have given up. Then Brexit Britain is broken. Then Brexit Britain is a joke and will be for years to come, just like Boris Johnson. Then desperate to stuff to justify a huge political move that's now proven to be a complete cluster. Followed by, is Johnson delusional? UK economy is worse off from Brexit. And lastly for this list, although they did go on, go away, you narcissistic, useless man, the worst PM this country has ever had. Or, in summation...
the great big greedy nincompoop.
The great big greedy nincompoop. If you can't get a good reception for your right-wing outpourings from the people who read the Daily Mail, Bodge, I think you'd better think it out again. 0345 6060 973, text 84850, email nick@lbc.co.uk. If you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbot, LBC.
This is LBC. This is LBC with Nick Abbott. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet @LBC. Text 84850.
Here are the studio calls flashing up on the indicator.
Yes, first call from Wolverhampton. Hello, James.
Oh, Nick, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Okay, yeah, I just want to bring up this current situation in Africa, in the Sahel district of the region of Africa.
You want to do what now?
The current situation in Niger, I don't know, because it's not been covered, unfortunately. And
it will continue not to be covered on this show, James. Not really what I have in mind to talk about. But good effort. Better luck next time. It's pronounced Niger, Mr. President. Thank goodness he's not the president right now.
Oh, shut up!
An international incident could ensue. Niger, Mr. President. Rose text. I heard Gordon Brown earlier today. Gosh, I cried. A politician. I honestly had forgotten what a real one sounds like. For one thing, he was really intelligent. Another, so articulate. And he has the ability to think as opposed to just scheming. Can you imagine that, Bodge?
I can't comment on that.
It is really quite surprising when you listen to an old politician, either when they're still speaking, assuming that they're still alive. If you hear dead ones, then I would contact a medical professional. But if you see a video of old-style politicians from the past, you think, blimey, God, they're so serious. Like you wouldn't be concerned with, letting them walk your dog. Never mind about running the country. Whereas this paper-thin bunch of clowns, I mean, seriously, I wouldn't get them to wash my car. Yeah, Gordon Brown. He talks with a certain degree of gravitas. Rachel says, instead of worrying about the tofu-eating wokerati, shouldn't we start worrying more about the caviar-eating anti-woke coalition?
Correct.
Yes, Rachel. It's not the people who are coming here in small boats that you've got to be concerned about. It's the people who are coming here from Eton. Speaking of which, here's a call in Nottingham. Hello, Helen.
Hi, Nick. Are you well?
Yes, great, mate.
Fab, I was just tuned in to hear you talking about class sizes in state education.
Yeah.
The fact that parents are now moving or wanting to move their children from state education into private education.
Yeah, like health. Exactly the same as health. They degrade the system, forcing you, if you can possibly afford it, to go private.
I mean, I can't afford it for my daughter. I was state educated. I do know that you were private educated in your younger years.
I had a mix. Almost all of my education was state. I went to comprehensive in Essex and Chelmsford, and for about 3 years at the end there, I went to private school in Edinburgh. So I would like to hear your thoughts, really. So as somebody who doesn't understand private education, because we've not been through it, I've been really lucky in life to even get to university and a master's and all of those things. Yeah.
I suppose for you that's been through that private education system, what do you see, I guess, the benefit
yes,
in
completely.
removing people from state education, which we pay our taxes for? And, I would love dearly, if I could, to put my daughter through private education.
Right, but only because you have low expectations of what the result would be if she went to a state school. Yeah, I mean, there's no other reason. I mean, unless you just want her to hang out with posh girls.
No, absolutely not. But she's a very bright girl who's done very well.
Right.
Did very well.
And you want to give her all of the advantages in life. Here's my experience. From the difference between the comprehensive in Essex and the private school in Edinburgh was almost nothing at all, apart from it wasn't considered to be not the done thing to make an effort in the private school. In the comprehensive, you didn't really want to make it look like you were trying as a kid. You didn't want to be seen to be keen, whereas all of that was completely absent in the private school, and they were encouraging you to actually be keen, and it wasn't like the other kids didn't look down on you, or it wasn't frowned upon to actually know a thing or two.
So, Nick, I suppose, and here's my next question, because my daughter's one of those that I think has possibly dumbed herself down a bit, as you described, because, you're doing really well and that.
You don't want to be seen to be keen.
Absolutely.
Not cool.
So with that in mind, do people believe that actually private education is
better? Yeah, of course it is. It's better than the alternative, which is not to say that the alternative should be as it is. It's only better because the alternative has been run down so much, because teachers haven't been rewarded. It's because classrooms are leaking and cold, and they've got asbestos falling from the ceilings and sewage pouring down the walls. I may be exaggerating slightly to make a point.
No, I'm an NHS nurse who, when the teachers were on strike, and I did strike in the first wave, who I was the only parent that went past and kind of like picked my horn in solidarity, because what a job.
Yeah,
What
exactly.
a job.
If you think about it, and A.C. Grayling made this point, I didn't read that particular bit, but he said it's basically the most important job for the history of humankind, teaching the next generation. I mean, we can have another generation of dribbling morons who will just do whatever they're told and vote against their interests, or we could have a generation of bright people who are actually, going to drag the species forward, not down.
I would love that, and I would love it if in this country our state education could mirror the experience of private education.
Yes.
I would absolutely. I mean, it won't probably within my lifetime.
No.
I don't think voting at this point makes a difference. I think it...
Oh, come on now, Helen. I mean, just think of the example of the NHS. I mean, the private health is so much better than the NHS, but you have to have a lot of money in order to access it. It didn't used to be like that. You don't have to think that long ago. It was 2010 when the NHS had the best ratings I think it's ever had and the smallest waiting lists it's ever had. And that was under the Blair Brown government.
I used to sit on workforce committees 15 years ago within the NHS, and it was probably 10 years ago when we started to sit there and just look at each other blankly across the table, like, what are we going to do?
Yes.
How are we going to fix this? I don't want to hugely go into a Brexit debate, but when that was announced before it actually happened, we lost tons of amazing European staff.
Of course. Well, and the reason is that we screamed at them for 5 years to get out of our country, and then they did, which was very unpatriotic of them.
We lost so much talent, so many skills, and here we are in a crisis. So I do worry, though, that this is going to take a long time to fix, and I worry for children in the state system that aren't getting the opportunities.
Yeah, well, they only get to go around once. So, I mean, you can blame them for their inability to learn, or you can blame the people who are actually responsible for making it difficult for them to learn.
That's the bit I absolutely agree with. Thank you, Nick.
All right. Excellent to have a chat, Helen. Thanks for that. 0345 6060 973. Text and tweets and such from last night. Justin says, this Crooked House story... Oh, this is the pub. This Crooked House story seems almost too on the nose as a metaphor for the UK as a whole. Wonky but much-loved place survives for hundreds of years until some rich people come along, buy it, and then watch it go up in flames and demolish it for profit. Well, we don't know who did that yet. A lot of assumptions are being made. But I guess we'll find out when the investigations have concluded. Oh, they've concluded already? Lessons must be learned? Nothing further is going to be happening? Okay, great. Let's just move on. Angela texts, the thing about Legionnaire's disease, this is the Bibby Stockholm thing, the thing about Legionnaire's disease is that it is wholly preventable and often fatal. All they had to do was to check the water wasn't contaminated before occupation, but the genius government didn't. Yeah, or did they? Because there is some suggestion that they investigated the boat before they put people on. The results came back with a big red mark all over it.
Warning, warning.
And then they put people on there anyway. That may have been the timeline. I mean, that's one explanation that I read. Of course, it could be that the government was doing their best to do the right thing by hard-working people who are doing the right thing. And in desperately trying to do the right thing, they did the wrong thing. Whoopsie-doodle. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nick@lbc.co.uk. If you're on Twitter, it's at LBC. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC. It's 10:30, the news headlines with Tim Daly.
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
You're wondering what it's all about, and I can't tell you because I don't know myself.
Mystifying. Text and tweets from last night. Joe texts, not Joe texts. Joe texts, I really need your help. Until Bodger, the undisputed king of utterly useless cabinet ministers, was Chris Grayling. Oh, failing Grayling. He was a complete nincompoop.
The great big greedy nincompoop.
But now, wow, what a choice we have. There's the Victorian Twiglet.
My view.
Yeah, the preening ninny. There is Nads the complainer, that fella that said, shut up and go away. There's Zahawi.
And one
2,
3,
6 million.
No. There's the trust bot.
Absolutely.
There's Crazy Kwarteng. Blimey, I could go on, says Joe. Please, can you organise a sweepstake as to who is the most utterly useless cabinet minister? No. Nev texts, years and months go by, nothing is done to resolve the problems, too busy trying to win the next election. That's going to be Labour's problem, because they're going to, assuming that, they are the next, our next dear leaders, then as soon as they get in, they're going to have probably the biggest mess that any incoming regime has ever experienced. I mean, the Tories are going to do absolutely everything they can to ruin this country before their spiny little fingers are apprised off the levers of power. They're going to make it as difficult as possible for Labour to make any kind of impact at all. And so the Labour Party, for the first, couple of years, are going to be undoing whatever it is that, taking out the booby traps that have been left everywhere by the outgoing administration. And then they'll settle down after a couple of years and they'll think, well, OK, so maybe we can institute some, positive change. And it won't have had chance to actually go through the system before they'll be faced with the next general election. And I bet you that people will think, well, we've had the Labour Party in for the last 5 years and just look at the state of the place. And they'll vote Conservative again. Hey, Keir Starmer, you'll have one go around, just one. Make it count. 0345 6060 973. Harrow, Jonathan.
Good evening, Nick.
Jonathan.
So, actually, I had a few things I want to say about...
Couple of things, yes.
My voting record and also how I feel a bit of guilt now, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I had a bit of a problem with the neighbour this morning because I was trying to call up Adam Castle in the morning.
Yeah.
And it was the whole noise issue again, so I was trying to keep it...
Right.
Quieter.
You were trying to call up Adam Castle, and people said, "Well, I'm afraid he's not here at the moment. Can we give you over to somebody else?"
No, she was from the next door. They were saying it's in the morning you're doing the shouting again when you bump into each other, and it's true, right? Because I'll wake up. But listen.
Well, when can a person in their own home have a good shout? If they can't do it in the morning, they can't do it in the evening. When can you do it?
So I'm not doing too well in this country because I told you about my cleaner issue. And
yeah, you had to fire one of your cleaners. I feel so sorry for you.
And then there was one other one left, and she was an Eastern European lady also.
Hang on a minute. How big is your home?
Oh, I've only got one house I rent. I can't afford to buy 3-bedroom.
You've got one house that you rent, and it's got 3 bedrooms.
I can't afford to buy because of credit crunch.
Because of credit what?
The cost of living credit crunch.
Oh, crunch. I can't be alone in being slightly apprehensive as to what it was you just said. A credit crunch. That's what you said. Right, got it. Are you okay?
Yeah, you were saying?
I was saying, how does a person who's only got a 3-bedroom house need 2 cleaners? How dirty are you?
No, because you have to keep your property in a good condition. Because this Eastern European second cleaner, she has also gone. He told me we had a bit of an argument because he does the boxing. He does the boxing? And she is a woman. And I said, oh... Hang on a minute.
He is a woman. Is that what you just said?
S-H-E.
S-H-E. She is a woman. Right. That's...
And does the mixed gender boxing. And I think this is... if I can, I'm going to say in a second about the wokie issue. No, it's serious.
So she does mixed... Did you say Zender or gender?
Yeah, the man and woman do the fighting together.
Ah, yes. Right. Is that what they're calling it? Fighting?
Disgusting.
Doesn't look like that to me.
So
are they horizontal while they're doing this fighting?
Well, we had a bit of falling out.
Oh, yes.
Now I've got an Englishman, and he, number one, bit of attitude.
You're not gay, but...
Bit of an attitude. And also, he for the first day when he come to do the cleaning, the quotation price, this is not my main point, but he then tried to extort me, and I had to give him £40 in envelope, because he said he's got his guys, he says.
He's got his guys? What? So you employed the mafia to do your cleaning?
Absolutely.
And now you're being extorted?
No, I think it's only the tough guys who are doing this, because all of the Generation Z, they're all being wokey, and they're so virtuous on the internet. There was one Generation Z newspaper article where they said, "Oh, we're so virtuous, we stack up the dishes when we go out to the restaurant." It's true. And it's true. No, I'm being serious. And all the while, what are they doing? They are doing the rioting and looting in the London.
Yes.
The youngsters.
Right.
Because
the wokey cokies, they might stack up their plates when they're finished in a restaurant, but they immediately go out and do the rioting in the London. Yeah, you are quite right about that, yeah.
Because they've never been I'm not saying beat them, but the police here, everyone's saying, what is your pronoun and all of this? But can I make a quick political point? It's true.
Okay. Political point coming up. Go ahead.
And so I voted, after the Tony Blair and the Gordon Brown, I voted, for the Gordon Brown election, I voted Lib Dem.
Yes. I find that hard to believe, but go on. What persuaded you to vote Lib Dem? Was it the I've lost it. Where is it? Oh, it's gone. Are you okay?
Yeah, sorry.
Are you, though?
Yes, I'm fine. You carry on. You're saying Lib Dem.
Oh, yeah, the Lib Dems. What was it that most appealed to you about the Lib Dems?
Want to score some pot?
No, because I used to buy the Sun at the time, and they used to say Gordon Brown was idiot, and he bankrupted the country and the gold.
Yeah.
They said that.
Right.
And then...
That does sound like something they would say, yeah.
And then in the next election, I did not vote for the Labour each time. And in a way, I feel slightly, I don't know, guilty, because in my part of the country, in Harrow, there is a lot of immigration. And nowadays, people are so sensitive. If you go up to somebody and say, "Oh, where are your family from?"
and they say Harrow.
No, because I look at people, and sometimes when I'm in the chicken shop and all of this, I count the number of people from the different races and ethnicities just in my head.
In the chicken shop?
Yeah, and you can't, and you say, "Oh, where are you from? You are in an interracial marriage," and things like this, and you can't ask this. But the point is...
Okay, that's a little bit different from where are you from, under certain circumstances is perfectly fine, but why are you in an interracial marriage? I'm not sure about that one. You might want to rethink that.
Not why, just saying, "Oh, that's interesting. It is multicultural success." But no.
And what kind of a response do you get when you point out that people are in a multiracial marriage and then congratulate them for their success?
No, it's like violent, aggressive, because... no, it's true.
It's met with violent aggression. Well, you might want to rethink saying that out loud.
No, but my last point, if I can, is that I see lots of poverty now.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I should feel the guilty, because I've only got one house and one car at the moment.
One house, one car, two cleaners.
No cleaners now, because this fat chap is extorting me.
Did you say fat chap?
Yeah.
Right, the fat chap. Okay, that was a detail that you missed out first time around.
Yeah, but the thing is, nowadays in this country, I don't know if I should feel guilty for doing for not voting how I did, because on the one hand you call her the Cruella Braithwaite. Yeah.
Cruella Braithwaite, yeah.
And Priti Patel. Now, some of your listeners might be shocked by me saying this, but it's just a point. They are both, like me, they're of Indian origin. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And they are empowered women, and they've got white English husbands, and I'm not jealous, so I don't have a problem with that.
Right.
But
do you have a white English husband yourself?
No, listen to me. But the point is, they're sort of just being empowered feminist women. And in a way, I think, had they just been like the good Indian housewives and stayed at home, the Home Office might have been better. And also, I think the kiddies would be stronger if we maybe just had another war.
That's a good idea. I want you, as soon as you have another good idea, Jonathan, I want you to call me up straight away. Promise me you'll do that.
I will, yeah.
Okay, good work. Thanks a lot, mate. As long as you live that long. 0345 6060 973. You can call my mind's just all of a swim at the moment. You can reach me at the usual places. The fat chap is extorting me. If that is not the name of a hit song within the next week, I will want to know the reason why.
This is LBC with Nick Abbott. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850.
Oh, hello there. Very nice to meet you.
In fact, Fat Chap's Extorting Me is... I knew I recognised it from somewhere. It's actually a lyric from David Bowie's canon. Fat Chap's extorting me. Hello, space boy.
Rock and roll!
I knew it from somewhere. Tim texts, when will people understand since leaving the EU, France has absolutely no obligation at all to stop people leaving their country? When we were in the EU, we had the benefit of having a special deal where we actually had a border of sorts in France. But no, we wanted control of our borders in the UK. Shock horror, our border starts at our shores. Who'd have thunk it, says Tim. Yes, when we were in the EU. The deal was we could send them back. Now we have demanded not to be in the EU anymore. We can't. Even though, out of their the goodness of their French hearts, they did say that they could set up a processing centre in France, if we liked, at their own expense. The French were going to pay for it, thereby solving this problem of the small boats.
The country's priority is to stop the boats.
No, it isn't. And we said no. Which is proof positive that the government is not interested in stopping the boats. They're only interested in continuing to say we have the intention to stop the boats, but we can't because of lefty lawyers or the lefty RNLI or, this incessant nonsense that we're only just experiencing the beginning of. In the run-up to the next general election, it's going to be a tsunami. Prepare yourselves. Westminster, Hassan.
Yeah, hi, Nick. It's very hard to follow caller Jonathan. I really don't know how to keep up with it.
Yes.
But I wanted to talk about the fiasco that was BB Stockholm. Because our brilliant sort of immigration people, right? I mean, Suella cannot get to where she has the heights that she's achieved without the able support of Robert Jenrick, who's, one thing he admitted that was very interesting is that they don't want to process decisions more quickly on asylum claims because he thinks then more refugees will start showing up.
Yes, they keep saying the quiet part out loud, don't they?
Exactly.
They just don't care anymore.
They don't care anymore, right? I mean, I think they're just so sort of callous and so pompous about their own position.
They're so clueless as to anything else that they can offer the electorate as a reason to vote for them at the next general election. They just don't have anything. Think of all the normal things that the Tories would bray on about as a reason to vote for them. Law and order. Well, they have overseen the complete destruction of law and order in this country to the point that something like 3 to 5% of crimes get solved now because they've completely gutted the police force and they've gutted the magistrates' courts and they've gutted legal aid and they've just dismantled the entire thing. So they haven't got that anymore. They can go on economic competence. No, that ship sailed and sunk. All the things that they usually use to recommend themselves to the electorate are over. They're either on life support, like the NHS, or dead now. And so the only thing they've got is division and whipping up the irate and the ignorant with tales of an invasion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And on... they tried to make an example out of these poor refugees, right? Putting them into boats, which everybody knows this is not a solution. And they said, it's good enough for the oil and gas company workers. Why shouldn't it be for refugees? Yeah. It is because that was designed for 220 oil workers, and they were trying to stuff 500 refugees into the same boat. Right. And that would have created a fire safety issue. And they said, no, trust us. And then it wasn't the fire safety issue, it was the Legionnaire disease or something which they got caught up on. So this is stuff that if you were to pitch this as an idea of a fiction movie, people would not believe this. But this is happening to us every day.
Only as some sort of comedy about a dystopian future where all sense had been removed from the electorate and the government with this past muster. I know, and apart from anything else, the unbelievable expense of this thing, and all they're going to be able to put on them is about 2% of those that are waiting to get their claims seen.
Exactly. We need, evidently, to just even get all these people out from hotels, we need 100 of these barges. So, but what is interesting is who got the contract for this barge. It's some sort of Australian company who got this contract without competition. And then we had a former Australian immigration minister on the radio talking about how wonderful the Australian immigrant sort of handling experience is. I mean, with complete disregard of the fact that Australia is 5,000 miles from the other country and we are 15 miles from another country.
Yes. Yeah, nothing about it makes any sense at all unless you think that the reason that they're doing this is to try to bring on board the more mouth-breathing and knuckle-dragging among us in order to secure their vote at the next general election. Other than that, it makes zero sense. If a hotel room costs 50 quid a night, why are they, in order to save us money, saving us 50 quid a night and spending £1,100 a night to put people on the Bivvy Stockholm?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the simple, look, I mean, the irony is that we have been very successful in managing refugees. We had an influx of 150,000 Ukrainian refugees. They were trying to escape a war, and we put them up without breaking our financial exchequer budget. We put them up. We invited families to host them. We supported those families with small subsidies, and we allowed them to work so they could stand on their own 2 feet.
Yeah.
This is what we should have done to these refugees as well. But instead, we want to make an example out of them. Maybe their color of their skin is black and brown, and that's why the government feels it's easy to get the media and the right wing all hyped up.
Well, what you have to keep in mind is 400,000 people were ushered in by the government from places abroad under legal schemes. They allowed, their fans should keep this in mind. The ones that want to send all foreigners home should remember that their government gave 400,000 people a year access to this to live in this country, while pointing at a couple of thousand people who arrived in the wrong way, as though that's the problem. All right, thanks a lot, Hassan. 0345 6060 973. John says, in order to prevent any more MP expenses scandals with second homes, maybe we should have them all on a barge on the River Thames by the Houses of Parliament. What could possibly go wrong? Rob says, if you want to provide the solution, cause the problem. And the dinglings will lap up the solution and their X is in the box. Yeah, they're just creating phony problems in order to pretend to provide a solution. I don't think they've got any time to actually govern anymore, do they? They're just running around coming up with these little wheezes, just a desperate attempt in order to get a positive headline in the Daily Mail. They're just doing a little dance in front of Viscount Rothermere. Here, do you like us doing this dance? No? Oh, we've got another dance. We can do this one. I'm actually dancing as I speak. It doesn't really go over well on the radio, but trust me, I am moving in strange and unusual ways.
Disgusting.
Lovely. Yeah, they're just doing like a little routine, just doing a little tap dance. Da-da-da-da-da-da, boom. How do you like that one? No? Oh, we've got another one. Hang on a minute. That seems to be the way that this country is being run right now. Just a desperate attempt to attract the attention of billionaire offshore media barons. What a way to run a country, eh?
Dreadful.
Jill says those barge people had just got unpacked and thought, this is home for a bit, and then they moved out. Not only homeless, but also wondering if they're also poisoned from the water that they'd probably been drinking. Terrible, says Jill. Maggie says, let me see how many more of these are. Oh, 9 pages. I'm never going to catch up. So I'll try and get through a call before the news, and then I'll do my best afterwards. Oldbury. Hey, Ranjit.
Hi, Nick. You're right, mate.
Have you been frying tonight?
I have. Yeah, I'm still at the shop. Yeah.
And what is the most popular product up your way this week?
The fish I caught from the local cut.
Mystery fish. Right.
Yeah, don't tell anybody. We don't want no one to know. I'm just about to put a balaclava on, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go scrumping for some potatoes.
Right.
Right. You know what the cut is? We call the canals in the Black Country the cut.
Why,
yeah?
why is that?
So that's why the canals are cut into the ground, aren't they? Think about it. Come on.
Don't
Einstein.
speak to me like that.
You're gonna whip me. Yeah. Okay, you know what? The hokey cokey, you're coming from India, I can do the accent
Yes.
like that.
Okie dokie.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Jonathan, I can do the accent. All the women, if they stayed at home, the home office would be in a better place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just love that. All right, I want to talk about the Crooked House here. I'm going to say nice things about it. When I was a bit younger, I used to go to a Dudley College, which is just up the road from the Crooked House.
Oh, yeah.
So that was where, I was supposed to be doing A-levels, right? But on a Friday afternoon, we'd just go off to the Crooked House and have a few drinks there.
Well, if only more people had done that, then it might not be a smouldering pile of bricks right now, because apparently people just weren't going there anymore.
Well, moving on to that, that's why all the pubs have shut down, right? The next now, chip shops are going to start shutting down because, in the trade now we see, right, you're going to go to these places where they've got processed food, these burger joints, they're all over the world. They get different rates for gas, electric and VAT and everything, so they'll survive and will be gone. And eventually, there'll be no one left. Just the little people are going to basically die. I wanted to keep it on a lighter note.
Oh, this is a happy call, is it?
Happy call, yeah. So like tonight, right? I'm going to go home in a bit. Yeah, I'm going to have a shower. I'll have a couple of extra tinnies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I haven't got to get up early tomorrow morning.
Right.
And then tomorrow afternoon, I sport my local pub. Yeah, I always go down on a Sunday afternoon, have a few beers there, keep everybody in the loop. You know what I mean? But the thing is, they said they're going to build it brick by brick. It's so funny, right?
Yeah, I seriously doubt that that's going to happen. How could they possibly do that? I mean,
oh my God,
how are they going to do that?
Yeah, well, the thing is, a lot of people have been going up there and picking up souvenirs, right? They've been picking up bricks on there. Right?
It'll be a one-story building by the time they get around to it. Yeah. Here, Ranjit, I've got to go, but thanks for that. Go on, one last thing.
Okay. I was studying physics at A-level, right, and we worked it out how it all was an optical illusion. So
it was? Oh, that's a disappointment. I thought it was actually leaning. Maybe I was just drunk at the time. Thanks a lot, Ranjit. 0345 6060 973. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbot, LBC.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC. This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbot.
Nobody.
Hi, honey. How are you?
I'm super. Thanks for asking. Text and emails from last night. Jill says, those barge people are... No, read that one. Maggie says, Maggie. Ow. Maggie says, speaking of certain elements, I was on the bus this evening and there was a lady speaking on her mobile in a foreign language. Sounded Polish. A man sitting next to her started shouting, blah, blah, blah. Brexit repeatedly and loudly. The knuckle-dragging morons are still around. I don't really get that. I thought you were doing an Irish thing there for a moment. Shall I read it again? No? Oh, okay then. Mark says, if we leave the ECHR, this will automatically nullify the Good Friday Agreement. This will cause more problems than we could ever dream of. It'll make Brexit look like a night out. Are you dancing? Peter says, it would not surprise me in the slightest if the Tories were investing in the train spotters of the small boat people. Train spotters. No. No. Transporters. It would not surprise me in the slightest if the Tories were investing in the transporters of the small boat people.
The little people.
Not leprechauns. And finally from last night, Stefan says, I was wondering if we vote in the Tories this time, it'll be the last time we get to vote for anyone ever again. Yeah. Any thoughts, Smug?
My view
is yes. Yeah, I'll be surprised and slightly relieved if we do actually get to another general election, if we're allowed to have one. I'll say it again. Would anybody be at all shocked if they cancelled the next general election for our safety? You know, just pluck some reason out of the air because, we're about to be invaded by China or Belgium or somewhere like that. Some reason why it has to be postponed until the polling looks better. It's extraordinary to even think that out loud, but, that's where we apparently are. East Yorkshire, hello, Mike.
Hi, Nick, how are you tonight?
I am super.
Good. Couple of bits. Briefly on the badge thing.
Yeah.
They knew, before they put 5 on Thursday, the results of the test. So they actually put people on there, but that made me think of it, because they're not very good with infection, because during COVID, they put infected people in clean care homes back in, and now they're putting clean asylum seekers onto an infected badge. These people...
Well, it's curious, isn't it? It's almost like, if you didn't know any better, you might imagine that the regime is trying to kill off the weakest and the oldest of us.
Yeah, I keep saying these lot are very Darwinian. You've got to be careful with them. But anyway, the main thing I rang up about, you read that long article out on education earlier on.
Yeah.
And it's sort of self-defeated because I quite agree with him. Private schools deliver better education.
Yes.
The bit you didn't point out is look at who is ruling us now. Look at the mob that are in charge, the shower, that are there, mostly private educated.
Yes.
So private schools also sort of introduce privilege and entitlement and being self-centred.
Right.
And to teach them how to lie.
Yeah. I don't know what is wrong with either there's something wrong with what Eton does to its pupils, or its pupils are like that when they go there. I don't know which is which.
Yeah, absolutely. It could be either way around, of course. But, it's either the upbringing, but it self-perpetuates itself. So once you've got into this system where the top judges and the top lawyers and everything else come from that background, and they send their kids to that background, this thing is self-perpetuating.
Right.
And we get people of that ilk at the top continuously, which is, I personally think, it's quite an unpleasant situation to be in.
Well, they may have they may have book learning, but they're not that bright.
I don't know anything.
And I think that is true. They get ahead though, because that's the way this country is run. Old school tie.
Yeah, and you get the education. The point is that someone like Sunak cannot actually perceive of what it's like. When you go to a food bank and you ask someone, is he in business? This is lunacy. If you've got any conception of what life's actually like, then, and far too many of them don't.
We as a country should not have got past that. Are you in business? He asked to a homeless person. How stupid is that? The man is an ocean-going ass, and yet we have put him in charge. That's our fault, that is.
Yeah, I quite agree with that. Unless you've got some conception of what that's like, you can't actually You can ask people, but surely...
No, you can.
Anybody.
I don't get... No, you're making excuses, Mike. Just because you're rich and you have never been homeless or never really had concern about paying bills, you can put yourself into the minds of somebody who is desperate. You just think, what would Jesus do? And then this lot think about that for a moment and then do the precise opposite.
Yeah, and then you've got Smug saying, I rely on my faith. Frequently, that's what Jesus would do and comes up with the wrong answer.
Yeah, I don't know what faith he is actually following, but I'm not sure it's the one that he is advertising that he's following. If he's actually acting according to his faith, well, I wonder which one that is. And when he prays, is he looking up or down? Which is it? Thanks a lot, Mike. 0345 6060 973. Today's texts are as follows. It's the latest craze launched from those fun guys, the Conservatives, the Bibby Stockholm Hokey Cokey.
Okie dokie.
He says you put your migrant in, you put your migrant out. In, out, you shake it all about. You do the hokey cokey and you turn around. That's what it's all about. Those Tories sure know how to party, says that anonymous messenger. Let's have, let me see now. Cornwall. Malcolm.
Hello, Nick. How are you, sir?
Great, mate.
Couple of three things. Hospitals and healthcare. I don't agree that private healthcare is better healthcare. It's just quicker.
Well, that's better.
And you have to pay for it. It can't be better because it's exactly the odds are it's exactly the same doctor you get who,
yes,
if you wait 6 months, he'll treat you on the NHS.
Right, but the waiting 6 months part is the bad part. So
that's
it's
not healthcare, that's waiting.
Yes, but if you're waiting, then whatever it is that you're waiting to get seen is quite likely getting worse.
Yes, but that's your health deteriorating. That's not healthcare. But I don't want to be pedantic.
And I would question that, actually, because I think that the NHS would restrict certain things that would be provided if you have the money to pay for them privately. They would restrict, how many heart monitors they're going to give you, how many MRI scans they're going to give you, and how many of this and that. I get the feeling from GPs these days that they're not actually in the business of providing a service like they used to be, that now it's more like they're protecting the NHS from you. They don't want you to be a cost or a burden to the NHS. So that it's almost like they're out there as a sort of deflector shield. Can I get rid of this person in the cheapest way possible and the quickest way possible so as they won't bother me anymore and there won't be another drain on the NHS?
Okay, here's my second point, right? And you're not going to like this one either.
Uh-oh.
I don't agree that private education is better than state education.
It is.
No, hear me out. You've just got smaller class sizes.
Better.
But look, a smaller class size is nothing to do with the quality of the education.
Yes,
Your
it is.
education in a state school might be disrupted more, but the quality of the teacher is no better than a public school.
Well, that's questionable, but it is not necessarily... the one does not follow the other, no. But if both teachers are alike, then you will get a better result from one that is teaching in a smaller class, privately.
You'll get a better experience, but you won't get a better education.
Yes, you will.
The quality of the teaching is the same, Nick.
No, you're thinking of a teacher as a person that stands at the front of the class and just lectures. That's not what I'm talking about. A teacher actually does one-to-one with their pupils as much as time allows. And in state schools, they have got no time.
Thank you for making my point for me. I used to be a teacher, and that's the exact point I'm making.
Right.
What you're getting in private education, Nick, is more time with a teacher who is equally as good in the state sector as the public sector.
Right,
what you're
possibly, potentially. I mean, they could be better, they could be worse. Okay. I mean, but let's assume that they're the same. So the result is that you get a better education privately. Yes, undeniably.
You get a better experience, Nick, in terms of the one-on-one time, and that results from smaller class sizes.
Yes. a better education. You get a better education.
Well,
you just do. You get a better education from private schools, and you get a better health outcome from private medicine. Yes, you do. That's why, because otherwise, what would be the point of paying for it?
Well, because you've got smaller class sizes, Nick, and therefore that teacher will give you more of their time.
Yes, a better education. How are you not understanding this?
Oh, I understand it perfectly, Nick. The point I'm making is that what you're paying for is more time for your child.
Right, a better education.
It's not a better education, Nick.
Oh, my God. Yes, it is, Malcolm. Of course it is. What you're describing, is a better education.
Nick, the quality of the teaching is exactly the same.
Look, we appear to be having a different argument. We're arguing across each other. You are standing up for state teachers, state school teachers, and saying that they... wait a minute. And saying that they are not necessarily worse than private school teachers. OK, I will concede that. I mean, it's quite possible that a private school would select the best teachers they can find, because that was what private school pupils' parents would demand. Yeah, but state schools haven't got the money, though, have they?
But Nick, you go for an interview.
And if I was a genius teacher and I had the choice of, even if the money was the same, and I had the option of teaching in a building that was new and that was well maintained, and I had a smaller class size, which would be less stressful for me, I know where I'd go. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
so the best teachers will gravitate to where the money and the best lifestyle is, which surely is in private schools, so they get a better education. I'm not saying it's right. The reason that it's better is because the state schools and the state health service has been whittled down by a regime that isn't interested in using either of those things for themselves. They don't care how bad it gets. They're not going to use it.
I disagree with you, Nick. Sorry, mate. And on a lighter note, your man Jonathan, who's on earlier, I think he's gone mainstream. I'm quite convinced. Let's say 100% certain. He was on with Sheila Fogarty in the week, speaking with a lovely accent, but with exactly the same voice.
Right. Okay. Well, if that is as accurate as everything else you've said so far, Malcolm, I'll take it with a pinch of salt, if you don't mind. Thanks a lot, mate. 0345 6060 973. They all sound alike to you? Is that what you just said? Richard texts, you're right. Just travelled for 5 hours in France, travelling to Dijon, and our windscreen is covered in bugs. Where are the bugs in Britain? Perhaps they've decided to pack up and leave from this farce of a country, says Richard from Fleet, but now in Dijon. And Lucy says, I'm just wondering how long Suella Braverman will take to propose sending refugees to Legionella-free destination like Narnia. Wasn't she supposed to be gone by now? There was this article, let's see, what's the date? What is the date? It was about 2 weeks ago, just less than that. This was in the Super Soaraway Express. Suella Braverman is set for the chop in a bloodbath cabinet reshuffle as Rishi Sunak is expected to wield the axe in a desperate bid to save his government after its Rwanda deportation plan was blocked. Can you imagine Rishi Sunak wielding an axe? I bet he couldn't pick one up. And apart from anything else, where are they going to find someone even worse than Cruella Braverman? I mean, you would have thought that they'd scrape the bottom of the barrel with Priti Patel, but they managed to find a way of going further. They found someone even worse. I mean, if they keep scraping, they'll dig their way through the bottom of the barrel and end up in China. But she's still there, apparently. 0345 6060 973, Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC.
LBC. Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
I think he's portraying a quite stupefying ignorance.
Lorraine texts, did you see that the beaches of Odessa in besieged, war-torn Ukraine have been reopening? In the sewage-lit uplands of 2023 Britain, we could only dream of such luxury as dipping a toe in a body of water and not contracting diphtheria. What a shower, says Lorraine. Yeah, believe that. The beaches in war-torn Ukraine are safer than ours. Perfectly normal in a well-run country. Kath texts, do you think that more people would get on board with the Bibby Stockholm if we renamed it Boaty McBoatface? Is Chris Grayling in charge of it? Finally, please say China like Trump does. Always makes me smile and chuckle. No, Kath, absolutely. Trying to dance me around like a puppet on a string. Get Sandy Shaw on the phone, she'll explain.
Rock and roll!
Let's have a call in Kilburn. Ellie.
Oh, gosh, that was quick, Nick. Hello.
Ellie.
Yes, I wanted to talk to you about fee-paying schools.
Mm-hmm.
I was sent to a private school. My brother went to a public school. And I think there are just a few obvious things that people are paying for. I mean, apart from, numbers of A-levels and O-levels and whatnot.
What's that noise in the background?
That was just my computer turning itself on. Yeah, exactly. Yes, I was ascending to heaven on my angel wings.
Mm-hmm.
So they're paying for opportunity. Like my brother was able to not only do printing and run a kind of printing press magazine, but he also joined a gliding club.
Right.
The school actually had its own gliders.
Yes.
So, just an enormous number of choirs, and they had...
Right, exactly. Much more basic than gliders. I mean, that seems a bit specific, but music lessons, for instance. They don't do music lessons much, if at all, in state schools anymore because they can't afford the instruments. And arts and all of these things that actually improve life, that we are uniquely good at in this country. We hit above our weight class in the arts in this country, music particularly. And that's... And what this government seems to want to do is to just turn everybody into a robot.
Affirmative.
Just some like working bot that just stares into a computer screen all day and shuffles numbers about like Fishy Sunak used to.
They want financially productive units that don't cause too much trouble and don't think too hard.
Exactly.
Really.
Yes.
And what happens when you give people interest in theatre and drama and music and art and the creative side of things is that it also feeds into their academic success. So it's been proven time and time again in state schools, in public schools, all over the world. That's proven because you're stimulating the whole person to become a rounded individual.
And that's the last thing the government wants.
Exactly. And the other things they're buying with their fee paying is a group of people who are rising up through the ranks of society together. So they're buying the privilege of a better education, access to the red brick universities, which leads on to better jobs because they were being employed by other people who went to those universities and went to those schools, and the old Thai network and the behind closed doors in the bar having a chat. Oh yes, I'm sure we can get your nephew into so and so and all that nepotism.
Yes, not red brick universities.
Oxbridge. That's what I'm trying to say.
The ivy-clad universities.
So and another thing that they have a tendency to provide is an arrogance, which just leads... It's so nauseating. I grew up around these people. It really is just unbelievable.
Only some schools. I mean, there's a couple of schools, maybe a handful, that do... it's like I said, either those schools produce children that are of this ilk.
My view.
Those kind of people. Or those children were like that when they went there. I don't know which is the truth of it.
Well, I know my brother wasn't like that when he went there, but he went there when he was 8 years old.
Right.
And by the time he turned 18, he was, just a product. It was really quite shameful. And all his friends were like that. Everybody he knew at that school was like that. And they had to be like that to survive within that environment.
Right.
So they carry that with them. In the groups, like the Bullingdon Club people, they'll behave like that because they want to be part of the Bullingdon, and then they carry that forward because that's who they have to be. This nonsense with Rees-Mogg and all of that, he's created that persona because it probably protected him from being bullied and beaten up, right?
Although, I mean, if he had tried that act on in any other school, I doubt he would have got out alive.
Imagine?
No, I couldn't. No,
he wouldn't have got past 14.
No, he would never have stepped foot into the play school, into the.
He'd have seen the end of his days at the school disco.
What's the school disco? I never heard of such a thing, apart from in films about American schools. Now, what's the school yard? That's an Americanism. What's our version of that? The school yard.
Playground.
The playground. Yeah, he would never have got out of the playground alive. No, that's right. Yeah, other kids would have used him as a toothpick.
Yeah, I wouldn't have survived comprehensive either. I was unbelievably vulnerable. But in a private school, people expected. I was the dunce. I was basically the stupid one in the class for the whole of my school career. I came out with 9 O levels and 3 A levels and a AO or something.
Well, that doesn't sound dunce-like.
Well, compared to everyone getting straight A's and extra credit and blah, 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 blah,
Right.
Yeah, I was the stupid one. But the expectation's high, and children tend to rise to the level of the expectation.
Yes, which is what I meant by you, in my experience of state school or private school as opposed to state comprehensive, was that it was not considered uncool to try.
Yeah.
In the private school, yeah. All right, thanks a lot, Ellie. Cheers, my dear. 0345 6060 973. Martin emails, I don't understand why you constantly complain about the government. Look at Bake Off. People love Bake Off because they don't give the contestants enough time to do it properly, so they drop the cake, so they come out raw, or they just fluff it up. Same with health. Local government, education, and the rest. If we gave them enough beds or books or money, it wouldn't be funny. Right. So we're being run by a comedy act. Yeah, except it's not funny anymore.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
It just isn't. It's just wearisome, is what it is. Luke says, I am writing this with a nasty taste in my mouth as I have to mention the most revolting man who ever entered politics. Boris Johnson has neither of the two qualities to be a good Prime Minister. 1, he lacks empathy for others. 2, he lacks ideas to make people with vulnerable lives have better ones. But Johnson has all the qualities for a bad leader and Prime Minister, and at least 2 of those awful qualities are a liar and being corrupt. The man is an utter disgrace, says Luke, who should really stop sitting on the fence when it comes to Boris Johnson. Any thoughts, Bodge?
I can't comment on that.
Can't comment on that.
Blah,
blah, blah, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Paul says, your comment on old politicians as composed to current ones, just listen back to Tony Benn. Tony Benn, he makes Keir Starmer sound like Zippy. Zippy in Rainbow. Mike says, Nick, you mentioned greed on your programme tonight as a world problem. Years ago, the Dalai Lama was asked by a reporter what was the greatest threat and danger to the future of mankind in one sentence. He replied he could do it in one word. Greed. Wonderful that you should repeat such a devastating message. Climate change also comes under the umbrella of greed. Yeah, it does. I mean, you have to say to a certain extent, greed. I'm going to sound like like Michael Douglas out of that film, whose name I can't remember right now. Wall Street. Greed is good to a certain extent because it gives people a competitive edge, but only to the point where the consequence of that is to the benefit of the whole of society. I mean, we can cooperate with each other pretty well when an external threat is involved. You know, wartime. This is why people always talk about wartime as, the good old days. They don't mean that bombs were falling out of the sky and we didn't have anything to eat. They mean that everybody was, working together as one. You felt part of a gang, essentially. But once the external threat is vanquished, then you start fighting amongst each other, and that's when greed comes in, personal greed. And, the less greedy the society, the happier the people. I mean, just think of which countries top their happiness index. It's the ones where they just spread the wealth out a bit more, rather than giving you the idea that you too can become a billionaire. All you need is to stick it to the person below you on the ladder. I mean, the truth is, if you weren't born rich, then it's vanishingly unlikely you'll ever become rich. But that's not going to sell lottery tickets, is it?
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
What in places goes on inside that head of yours?
Victoria says, I moved both of my children out of state school and into private education. Never intended to or wanted to. But believe me when I tell you, there are some very crazy decisions being made in some local primary schools. Worth every penny. Don't regret a second of it, says Victoria. You know, the thing is that if private schools did not exist, then state schools would be better funded. The reason for that is because politicians in general, and the rich in particular, would have to send their children to state schools, and they would demand that they be better funded. It's because there's an alternative that the rich can avoid the state schools, just like they can avoid the NHS, is that the reason is that is the reason for the degradation of both of those systems, is because the well-off don't have to use them. So what do they care? 0345 6060 973. Brixton, hello, Clive.
Oh, hello, Nick.
Clive.
Long time no speak.
Ah.
Nick, I have to put this to you. We will know when this country has reached rock bottom, is when all the immigrants start rolling out again.
Yeah.
And then will the British Navy be there to stop them from doing it?
Yeah, bring them back.
So that they don't have to go to France.
Well, that is an interesting, somewhat dystopian future you've just painted for us there, Clive. But when the small boat people start rowing away, then we know we're in trouble. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's where we're heading, Nick. That's where this country is heading. I can see it now. I mean, it's going to be a terrible, terrible outcome for this country.
Right.
Now, the other thing that I wanted to mention to you, Nick, is this. I saw a terrible thing this week in Brixton, walking down through the main thoroughfare past Brixton Tube Station. An ex-army soldier lying by the side of the pavement with a placard put by the side of him. He even had his medals on. He's now homeless, right? Now, these guys that can come across here, they get put up in a barge. All right, granted, it turned out to be, but they're now going to be residing in a
Clive,
3 or 4 star
let me stop you there.
This poor guy.
Yeah, but let me stop you there. If you're blaming the people coming in on boats for the predicament of the chap that you're talking about, that is completely wrong.
No, I'm not blaming them,
Right.
Nick. I'm not blaming them. What I'm saying is, this government, Mr. Richie Rich, who's now over in Florida in the Walt Disney World, whooping it up. This poor guy is lying on a street in Brixton,
right,
that has put his life up for his country, and he gets treated like nothing. Whereas, all right, I mean, I've got total empathy with people that are, like refugees and whatnot. I don't want to see anybody go without. But this country's got it all wrong.
Well, I'll agree with you there, yes, but we can do two things at once. We can treat our veterans better, and we also have the ability to treat people who are in such desperate straits that they are going to get into an unsafe boat and cross one of the world's most dangerous waterways. We can do both things at the same time. And that's exactly what the government would have you believe, that the reason that they are sadly unable to treat veterans better is because of insert name of small identifiable minority here, whoever it might be. It changes by the week. 1 week it's single mothers, the next week it's benefit cheats, and the flavour of the week at the moment which is going to run and run, is the small boat people, because they think that that's what we're most concerned about.
The country's priority is to stop the boats.
The country's priority is not to stop the boats. But, good point, Clive. Thanks a lot, mate. We should treat our veterans better. That's a contract that we have with them that seems to be broken. Shame on us. Kevin texts, the country needs more people in small boats and less people in big yachts. we would all be better off if that were the case. Yeah, because the people in big yachts seem to spend most of their time trying to figure out ways to avoid paying the taxes that a reasonable person in the street would consider that they are due to pay. They take and they take and they take, and they make their fortunes using, if not directly, then in a second-hand way, everything that we've been talking about today, the health service and the schools and councils, which have also been defunded, and everything that we rely on are used by the super-rich, if not directly, then the people that work for them. And without the state schools and the NHS and so on, then they would not have a workforce. And then they make the money on the backs of those workers, and then they squirrel it away. They employ buildings full of people to just make it disappear, as though it's like just a cloud of mist for tax purposes. Yeah, so you're right. More people in small boats who would actually, once they got through this torturous system, would be working, doing jobs that we Brits don't want to do and are being left undone to the detriment of us all. And less people in big yachts would be a good idea, yeah. 0345 6060 973. Let's see now. Who's been waiting the longest? Let's have Lewisham, Jane.
Hello, Nick.
Hello, Jane.
This all started with Cameron, and all of the others that have followed have got worse. But it is now an emergency.
It started with Cameron.
I think this is nonsense. Yes, definitely.
Really? And people who followed him were actually worse.
Absolutely.
Any names in mind?
Every single one of them.
All of them.
Worse as they go along.
Yes, I'd agree with that.
And now we are in an emergency. It shall be horrendous if we don't start to sort it. And I don't think we can wait. I think that Rishi, wherever he is, should resign.
He's not going to do that.
I think he should think about it. I hope he's listening.
Yeah, he's not going to do that either.
He doesn't need the job.
No, which makes me curious as to why he's doing it. I mean, why would a chap who can earn without doing anything at all the same in one day that he would pick up as the wage to be the Prime Minister in a year, why is he doing it? Curious.
Maybe. I don't think it is curious. I could give you an idea. I think that he should seriously think about resigning because he's even messed up the police force and they can't protect him.
I thought that the worst Prime Minister we ever had was Mr. Blobby.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
And we can dismiss the trust bot.
Absolutely.
Because she was there in position for such a short brief period of time that you blink and you missed her. But I do believe that Rishi Sunak is actually worse than Boris Johnson, because at least with Boris Johnson, you kind of knew what you got. A man who was utterly self-interested and self-centred, who wouldn't do a single solitary thing unless he thought that he could benefit from doing it. But Fishy Sunak, he's got this sort of, these little puppy dog eyes, this sort of pleading look to him. I'm not a threat to you. And he absolutely bloomin' well is. He's worse than Boris Johnson. That shut you up, didn't it? Anything to add? No.
No.
All right, good work. Thanks a lot, Jane. 0345 6060 973. Phil texts, how to reduce the members of the House of Lords in a fair and unbiased way. Musical chairs. My pick would be a Strauss Concerto LP played at 78 RPM. That sounds like a good idea. I think it would probably sound like this. Are you dancing? I'm asking. Liam says, I don't know why people go on about King Charles. If I have to bow my head and make sure it's lower than somebody else's, then it's King Charles I want to bow it to. Women sports players are only just talking about periods now. Oh, no, I can't read that. I can't read that. Why are you putting enough stuff on the screen here for me to read that I can't read out on the air? That's just naughty, naughty. You will stay after class. But I just find it a bit hard to get used to that we have a queen now. Don't we get a say in that? I mean, we have a queen now that's just been foisted upon us. When you see a picture of, you know, does in your mind, does it ring queen to you? Doesn't me. Not my queen.
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Now, wait a minute. I don't like that kind of talk. Now, just stop it. It upsets me.
Alan texts, Nick, that barge, did they use Thames water to fill that tank? I would make a minister drink barge water to prove it's safe. Yeah, I'd get them to swim off our coasts.
Disgusting.
See what happens. Chris says, so pleased that you've highlighted this article by A.C. Grayling. Thanks, he's so right. And this from a man who detested his own schooling in Rhodesia. True insight, says Chris. Yeah, if you missed it earlier on, there was an excellent explanation as to why we're in the state we're in, which is the reason that we're talking about private versus state schools. Well, some people are. And it was by A.C. Grayling. And I don't know whether I did at the time mention where I found it. It was on Byline Times, dated the 2nd of this month, Byline Times, which is an excellent facility. James texts, once there was a woman called Suella who thought she could spread Legionella. She put people on barges and should face criminal charges, but Sunak is too scared to tell her. Let's have Kensington. Richard.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, hi. Yes, it's very interesting, this whole situation. I find it really rather strange.
Which one?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, there's so many of them. Let's see, all these people coming here, we haven't got enough space here in England. I mean, okay, I'm American, but I've lived here forever.
We haven't got any space?
Well, you know, people want to live near cities so they can have jobs. I mean, I don't want to live in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, but then as cities expand, then the middle of nowhere becomes next to a city.
Well, yeah.
But also cities go up, not necessarily out.
That's true. That's very, very true. But then, you know, you've got transportation issues.
Yeah.
If you've got to spend an hour getting to work and an hour coming home from work plus your work.
Right. Then perhaps you should move closer to work would be a good idea.
Well, if you can afford to.
Right. And
that's the thing. I mean,
and the answer to that is build more homes.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I look out the window and I've got Trellick Tower there, which is a monster.
Yeah. Why do people admire that architecture? It just looks hideous to me. Trellick Tower. It's just awful.
It's horrible. It's horrible.
That's the one with the separate stairwell, right? That's
right.
Yeah. It's just. That's right. Yeah. I mean, people call that a classic of brutalist design. It just looks. I just never found it anything other than hideous on the eye.
It is. It is.
And that's your view.
Well, you know, as I said, I'm from New York, from Manhattan. Right. And you look at the Chrysler Building, the Empire State Building.
But very few people actually get that view out their windows, though. Only millionaires and billionaires get that view.
Well, we used to live in the village, in Greenwich Village, and you could see them easily.
Really? Out of your windows?
Yeah.
Okay, then. So how come you find yourself in the dog end of Kensington?
Oh, well, here we go. I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. Okay, when I was 18, 1968, height of the Vietnam War, I had to get out of America because the government wanted to throw me in the army.
Huh.
Yeah, so I ended up, my parents sent me to a lovely boarding school in France. And I spent, nearly 3 years there and then came here. And I came here because I'm a rock musician. And rock music only happens here and in the U.S.
Yeah.
Rock and roll!
Pretty much.
Yeah, man.
I mean, does anybody really want to go out of their way to listen to French rock music?
No.
Not really.
No.
Not in great numbers, no.
No, not in any numbers, not even the French.
That's right, yeah, not even the French, yeah. Even they don't want to hear French music, quite right.
Yeah. Well,
so when you sort of fled the draft, the Vietnam draft, was that an illegal act on your part to go to France, or was that okay at the time?
Well, no, it wasn't. I mean, I left 2 weeks before I would be indoctrinated. If they caught me, and there were people running around capturing people, they get rewards for dragging me back.
Huh.
Yeah?
Right,
Incredible.
so you... right,
Anyway,
no, but hang on a minute, let me finish. So that was... So when you went, when you avoided the draft... if they'd known that you were in France, could they have dragged you back?
Well, they didn't know where I was.
Right, okay.
But, the thing is, it was really weird, because that would be an immediate 10-year jail sentence.
Wow.
And there was no...
He expressed himself in builder's language. We just forgot where he was at the moment. We were just having a chat like we were in a bar, having a beverage. Booze. And he just forgot himself for a moment there. But good work there, Richard. Thanks for that. Interesting. Everybody's got a story that you could make a film of, or certainly a book. Every single one of us has at least one book or... which could be made into a film of our life story. Not necessarily all of our lives, but just perhaps a tiny little bit. And I think it's important to remember that, because, you'll pass somebody in the street, or you'll have a chat with somebody in the supermarket or whatever, and you just see them as who they are now. And you don't really think about how they got to be right there in front of you. What was their journey? And everyone's is unique, and everyone's is special, and everyone's is fascinating and frightening and engrossing, and everyone's got a story. So, I think we should share our stories. What do you say? Not necessarily on this show, but, in real life. You remember real life, don't you? 0345 6060 973. Rahul texts, interesting that even the Daily Mail commentators don't like Boris anymore. I noticed that reading the DM this morning. At least Trump still has the support of his base in the United States. Yeah, he does. He absolutely does, Donald Trump. It's like the people who are Donald Trump fans, it's like they joined a cult. But we don't really do cults in this country. And I think people have looked at Boris Johnson and they sort of went along with it for a while. But I don't know. His brand is permanently stained.
Disgusting.
If you want to know what people think, read the Daily Mail comment section under Boris Johnson's column. This is online, of course, not in the paper itself, but online. And click on the best rated section, so you get the ones that most people like the sound of. You can click them up or down as to whether you like it or you don't like a comment. And the best rated comments are all, well, I read you a selection earlier on. Just awful, Bodge. They hate you. 0345 6060 973. Sam Batch. Hello, John.
Yeah, the previous speaker, what he must say is that the vast majority of people who got killed in the Vietnam War were poor blacks and poor whites who couldn't afford to dodge the draft.
Right. That's every war, pretty much. They're the ones that go first.
Yeah, they're the ones that go first. The poor ones can't dodge the draft, can't do that, can't get out the position they're in.
Yeah.
So they're the cannon fodder.
Right.
And he was in a privileged position where he could afford to skip off and dodge the draft, and now he's laughing about it.
Well,
yeah.
Any smart person would have done the same, unless you actually believe in the war that you are that they are trying to dragoon you into joining.
Yeah, I mean, the blacks and the whites probably didn't believe in the war that they had to go to fight in.
Right.
But they couldn't afford to do anything about it.
But that does not mean to say that the people that could afford to do something about it are necessarily bad people for having protected themselves.
No, I'm not saying they're bad. But what's the state of America now? It's full of right-wings. Full of right-wingers, evangelicals and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's about half and half.
Yeah, they forget about the Vietnam War and all them poor.
Well, we've forgotten about all of the our misdeeds and criminal acts and the slaughter that has gone on at our behest for our just to make money, essentially.
Yeah, we're just as bad as well.
Yeah,
I mean,
we're at least as bad as any other country that has ever existed.
Probably worse.
Probably worse of most of them. Yeah,
most of them. Yeah, and another thing, putting people on barges on the Thames is not a new idea. It was done in the end of the 17th century, and with all the convicts that they couldn't put in the jails because the jails were overflowing. And what happened to them? They ended up in Australia as the first fleeters.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, it's not a new idea putting people on barges. It's reprehensible, but it's not a new idea.
Right. Everything's been done under the sun.
Yeah.
All right, good work. Thanks a lot, John. 0345 6060 973. Andy says, I've had enough of this country with this useless government. How do I volunteer for Rwanda resettlement? Well, you keep saying that stuff out loud, Andy, and they'll probably stick you on a boat toot sweet. Don't you worry about a thing. Criticising the regime, not allowed. It's called being unpatriotic. They're going to have to re-educate you. And that's not even me making that up. That Rishi Sunak actually said that out loud, didn't he? He said, anybody who speaks badly of this country, we're going to re-educate them. So something alarming like that. I think he just blurted it out, just thinks these things up and just chucks it at the wall, see if it's going to stick. And people were so outraged. The sharp intake of breath was so loud that he just dropped it straight away and directed people's attention to a dinghy. That stuff always works. 0345 6060 973. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbot, LBC.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC. This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbot.
Shut up. Right, so what are we doing?
Given we are doing a radio show, Betty texts, aren't all the poor Brits turning their water heaters down, running the risk of Legionnaire's disease? Sunak may reduce NHS waiting lists after all. I bet Bradman is worried her actual barge experiment has been rumbled. What? They're trying to kill us all.
Oh, no.
If that is what they're actually trying to do, then they're doing an excellent job. If they're trying to keep us safe, then they're doing an abysmal job. Anne texts, Nick, the only way to stop illegal immigration by the Channel is for us to have the Dunkirk spirit, where everybody in the southeast, small boats or bathtubs or whatever amphibious craft they have, go out into the sea, form a line, form a F-O-R-M-E-R, form a line, and as the illegal immigrants are approach, they stop them, says Anne. God. Or in other words... Anne, can I interest you in a comma or a full stop?
No.
Pam says, I wish somebody would invade this country. Any other ruler would be better than the cretins that we've got now. Well, that's just a good point. 0345 6060 973. Southampton, Stephen.
Oh, hi. How are you doing?
Good, thanks.
I just think that it's important to note for the last 40 years, interest rates have been declining, which means that if you've owned bonds, you've done very, very well. But that's been broken, so it has profound implications. I think we are walking towards a disaster. I think that your man from St. Petersburg was talking about 1917, and in 1917 they closed down the Black Sea with all of the implications of that.
Wait a minute. There's somebody from St. Petersburg? Who's that?
He was waffling on about 1917.
Which show are you listening to?
Well, I listen to a lot of George Galloway, which gives an interesting view of the world as well. But
right, I don't know which station you've been listening to, Stephen, but it ain't this one. It certainly ain't this show. But, misdialed. Please try dialing again. Fran texts, you know this ding-a-ling government that has totally messed up the Bibi Stockholm? Did you know that they're also in charge of the economy? They're in charge of the economy?
Oh, no.
Well, that does answer a lot of questions that we've been posing. Keith says, if Eton produces students with a better education than State, and 20 UK MPs went to Eton, how come the economy is in such a state? Well, that implies, Keith, that they are acting in our interests rather than their own. They have done very well, thanks very much. John says, I've taught in both state and private schools. There's no way I'd go back to teaching in a private school. State all the way. Private schools may have smaller class sizes, but the level of entitlement from many of the children and their parents in the private schools is enough to make you run for the hills. What have we become as a society? Top and bottom objectionable. Issues the same, though, the parents. Well, you've just hold your own argument under the waterline there, John, because you said that the parents are bad at the top and the bottom, but it's the bottom that that you will come up against in state schools. So what's the difference? Why have you run? You've run from the frying pan to the fire. David says, Nick, you got it wrong again. I went to a private school and I am a benefit-scrounging thicko and a complete waste of space. Get out of that one, wokey, says David. Well, you got me there. Good point. Kingston, Mark.
Hello? Yeah.
Mark.
Yeah, I don't know why they don't just, they can't run this country. I don't know why they just don't sell it.
Sell it? I think they've sold everything that isn't nailed down.
Yeah, it's like a tin of sardines of all these people coming over, isn't it? And
tin of sardines. Is that how you feel in Kingston? You feel you're crammed in like sardines in Kingston?
Yeah. Well, it was like that in the first place. It's got worse now, isn't it? It's going to get even worse in the future.
You think that we're crammed in like sardines?
Yeah, that's right. All over the country. Yeah. It's a small island.
It's not that small. Have you ever been outside Kingston? Have you driven like 5 minutes outside Kingston? And what do you see?
More sardines.
No, you see fields, Mark. You see fields for as far as the eye can see, right to the horizon. Fields with nothing in them. Sardines. John says, read that. Anne says, a colleague of mine years ago sat next to the provost of Eton at dinner, and he told her that even those boys paying full fees were being subsidised because what Eton offered cost much more. Subsidised by whom? Subsidised by us poor dopes who pay taxes is what they're subsidised by. Because of the... I mean, it's a business, right? It's a business that makes profits. Private schools. I don't know what Eton's balance sheet looks like. I've got no idea. But I imagine they're doing just fine. But the rest of us are actually subsidising them. Us mugs who pay taxes. More fool us. Martin texts, Rishi is going to be the new... Let me read to the end of this. I don't know. Maybe not. Gordon says, Boris Johnson was... I can't read that one, really. Well, I mean, I suppose I could, but it's right on the edge.
Oh, no.
Gordon texts, Boris Johnson was a... No, I can't read that. Sevenoaks, Mark.
Hi. I noticed that several people were wondering why the Labour Party and the Conservative Party were both following the same line in terms of putting out the waiting list access to essentially non-health, non-NHS organisations, rather than just employing more people in the NHS. And it's occurred to me that it might be because of the way they're both supporting the current collapse of the economy due to Brexit, resulting in people needing to reduce their standard of living to account for the reduction in the size of economy. Because that only really applies to those people who are stuck in the local labour market. Now, the EU freedom of movement has gone. But people who are qualification rich, like medics, for example, their labour market isn't this country, it's the world.
Yeah, they can go here, there and everywhere, baby.
So actually the amount they're demanding may well be the going rate, the correct free market value for their services.
Probably.
Which means the government has to pay it, but doesn't want to be seen to be paying it. And if they operate through these private companies, because the staff are paid more by the private companies, they can effectively get more money to them by putting work that way rather than directly through the NHS system, without it appearing they're actually giving them a raise.
I mean, everything you just said, though, rests on the assumption that the government is interested in protecting and saving the NHS. That they have to pay the doctors a certain amount if they're going to get them to work in the NHS is on the assumption that the government actually wants those doctors to stay. Everything that they're doing looks to me as though they couldn't care less.
Well, they are doing what I've just said. I think there's basically there are two problems here. One is that if they do what I said openly, they would be saying to a lot of the people who voted for Brexit, well, these people who you wanted to mess up with Brexit are actually not being messed up, and you're having to pay their share as well, which doesn't look very good for parties that are Brexit-supporting parties like the Conservative Party and the Labour Party. I don't know that the Conservative Party want the NHS to crash too quickly, because otherwise it'll make it look as if they have done it.
Well, they've been in power for nigh on 14 years now, and the NHS used to be a service that we could be proud of. It used to be the number one rated health service in the world. The waiting lists were at an all-time low, and satisfaction was at an all-time high. And then 14 years of safe in their hands Conservative rule has brought us to where we are now, where you can't really rely on the NHS for anything at all. And that if you have any money, you should raid your savings and sell your car and give up the idea of a holiday and etc. and so on, just to get treated, because you only go round once in life, and you can just sit there waiting for the NHS to catch up with your malady and be miserable and in pain for potentially years, if not the rest of your life, as your condition gets worse because it's not being treated. Or you could just pay for your own treatment to get treated by the same blooming doctor that you would be waiting for to get seen by on the NHS. And that seems to be If that's not the plan, then they're doing a very bad job. If it is the plan to get us to, in desperation, spend our own money on essentially buying the same thing twice because our taxes have paid for the NHS, if that is the plan, then it's going great.
Yes, I think the thing is that they may well want to destroy the NHS, but they don't want to be blamed for it. And although you're not going to be fooled by it, I think that they think that they can fool people by doing it slowly, essentially.
Well, yeah, this is why they're picking a fight with junior doctors, is because the government can say, well, of course we're working our socks off night and day. It's our number one priority to get the NHS back on its feet. But these lefty, woke, activist, greedy doctors, they continue to go on strike and ruin our best efforts. That's why they want this strike. That's why the government are being so intransigent. That's why they're spending as much money on getting consultants to fill in for junior doctors as it would cost them to actually give the junior doctors the money that they're asking for. Incredible. It's cost £1 billion for the government to fill in with agency staff for the junior doctors that are going on strike. The exact same amount is what would give those junior doctors the pay rise that they're asking for. So they've spent the money, but just not fixing the problem.
Yes, but they are, to a certain extent, fixing the problem, and they're giving the money to the consultants, who also want more money. And they're doing so in a way that doesn't look as if the consultants are dodging their share of the pain of Brexit.
Yeah, they're not doing it. They're not doing a favour to the consultants. They're just keeping this, like many other things that are going on at the moment with the railways and much else of this sort of woke war, this constant war that they're fighting with the wokey-cokies, is that they want this scab that they can keep picking at, and in order to say, well, we'd love to make things better, but look at all these lefties who are it's the same with the small boat people. They don't want it to stop. They want they want this situation to continue so they can get their fans to be angry at someone other than the government for causing this situation in the first place.
Yes, I agree with you, but that doesn't mean to say that both things can't be true at the same time. I think that what you're saying is, and what I'm saying is suggesting that they're rather good at the scam that they're running.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, you could say that they're incompetent, but I don't believe that it's incompetence at all. I think they're doing precisely what they want very well.
Leading Britain's conversation, Nick Abbot. Alexa, send a comment to LBC.
This is absolute tosh.
Yeah, this junior doctors issue is just another one of those scabs that the government wants to leave untreated so they can just pick at them. Oh, it's got nothing to do with us. Look at all those lefties over there. It's their fault. This is the British Medical Association that said, while workload and waiting lists are at record highs, junior doctors' pay has been cut by more than a quarter since 2008. A crippling cost of living crisis, burnout, and well below inflation pay rises risk driving hard-working doctors out of their profession at a time when we need them more than ever. Yeah, that's right. They can go wherever they want. I mean, it's a big deal to up sticks and go to, like, Australia, for instance. But if people that that you went through training with, have done that, and they're calling you on the phone, they're WhatsApping you, and they're saying, blimey, it's great over here, mate, then you'll swallow the concern that you might start speaking like that, and you just might go. They said where am I? So far, the government have refused to meet with us, says the British Medical Association. This has left doctors with no other option but to vote on whether to take industrial action. If junior doctors are forced out of the NHS because of poor pay and conditions, the services we all rely on to look after our loved ones will suffer. Well, not the service that the government ministers rely on, of course. I mean, to a person, they're millionaires. Point to the one that's not. They don't use the NHS any more than they use state schools. And there was a right-wing channel that put out this information. The junior doctor strikes this year have cost the NHS approximately £1 billion so far. The eye-watering figure has been announced ahead of the latest 4-day walkout. Across the year, junior doctors from the BMA have taken 16 days of industrial action. The walkouts over pay have cost the NHS close to £1 billion, as money has had to be poured into cover for absent staff. Keep that amount in mind. Health Secretary Steve Barclay said the strikes were diverting significant amounts of money away from frontline services and have led to the cancellation of countless operations and consultations. Yeah, that's right. It's your blooming fault, Steve Barclay. Julian Kelly, the NHS Chief Financial Officer, said a third of the spending was down to the direct net cost of effectively paying more senior staff to cover junior staff who've gone on strike. Right, £1 billion. Which is the exact same amount that the government could have spent restoring junior doctors' pay. £1 billion. Now, when that figure was put to the government, they do their usual routine of saying, oh, well, I don't recognise that figure, which is a completely meaningless thing to say. The Health Secretary, Steve Barclay, said that it wouldn't be £1 billion, it would be £2 billion. But that is misinformation. You'll be stunned to learn that that is not truthful. I mean, I think at this point your default position should be to just dismiss anything that a minister in this crooked government says. Because, of course, when a person gets paid, there's tax that comes from those wages. Not to mention the uplift in the economy when those doctors spend those wages. So the actual cost would be less than £1 billion, not 2 million, less than £1 billion, which is more than the amount that this regime has spent on hiring cover staff to take the place of the junior doctors that they're refusing to negotiate with because they think that their mouth-breathing fans will love it, because it looks like the government is sticking it to the elites. As stupid as that sounds, that appears to be the plan that the Tories have fashioned to win the next election. A billionaire Prime Minister is sending out his millionaire ministers to claim that they're fighting against the elites to try to bring on side people who have nothing. What a way to run a country, eh?
Dreadful.
I can't believe it. 0345 6060 973. Ealing, Stuart.
Coming to me first.
Stuart,
oh, wow.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Apparently, I was in the queue just before an angry person. But anyway, I'm not so angry. It's nice to speak to you again, Nick. So I just wanted to kind of like, I don't really have a comment as such, but I wanted to kind of just unpick this with you just a little bit and see if we could. Why do you think that the general public aren't kind of taking a stronger approach to what's happening with the NHS? You know, the junior doctors, okay, to be a doctor, I was speaking to your producer, and it's very true. Some of these talented people could have done anything. They're bright. I studied medicine, not that bright, but I accessed the NHS. I have accessed the NHS over the last year because I've been very poorly. And all I can say is that these doctors and nurses, they are rushed off their feet, but they work so hard. They're really hard-working people. They're exasperated by their situation that they find themselves in. But I just the reason I'm calling in is the first point is it's like a dream world, Nick. I don't. It's like you have to pinch yourself to believe that all of these things are happening to the NHS. Like I can't take it in.
Well, never mind about the NHS. The country. All this is happening to the country right now, and nobody appears to be raising a finger of complaint.
I don't understand it, Nick. I mean, you know, it's.
I think the article that I wrote, or the column that I read before by A.C. Grayling, sums up a lot of the problem. It's that it's the stupidification of the nation continues apace. It seems to be a deliberate policy to wind down education to the point that people just stop thinking for themselves.
It takes I live with an elderly man, and I've called the ambulance out because not going to go into the details, but on occasion he's been quite poorly, and we've had to call the ambulance. A GP lives next door, and we get him out first, and he said, call the ambulance. Ambulance for what I would consider to be something of a real urgent kind of red light situation, flashing light, can take them up to 4 or 5 hours to get here. Sure. So there's clearly something happening with the NHS. Yeah. I've accessed the NHS, and the doctors that you see at the end of a very long wait, Nick, they're knackered, they're absolutely shattered. They're first-rate doctors and nurses, but they are completely, utterly pushed to the limit.
Well, you don't get any argument from me there. And if the government is intent on protecting the NHS, they're doing an abysmal job. I mean, it's hard to believe that they could be doing a worse job. If the intention is to actually wind the service down to the point that people start paying for their own treatment privately, then they're doing a fantastic job. Select.
Do you think eventually it will come to a crisis point?
We're there already.
I mean, okay, a point where the general public, there's a realisation, people realise for the first time, oh God,
well, we may be there too. I mean, look at the polling. The Labour Party, having done really nothing to recommend themselves to the public, are 20 points ahead in the polling. I mean, in France, people would be picking up paving stones and chucking them at gendarmes. We, in this country, shrug our shoulders, we hunker down, and we hope that we can make it to the next general election.
We have a Prime Minister, Nick, and a government that have turned their backs on doctors. I mean, just saying this in a sentence, listen to it. Yeah. Turn their backs on doctors, nurses, teachers,
lawyers,
and the lawyers. It just goes on and on and on, and you think you're scratching your head, thinking,
who is it that they're trying to appeal to? I think. I mean, I have to assume that the Tories imagine that come election time, that the middle class, with mortgages and savings and so on, they'll think, oh, well, you know what, it's not worth it, I'll just vote Conservative. I think that in the back of their minds, that's what they're hoping for. That when it comes down to it, people with money will act to type and vote Tory just in order to better keep hold of their money. Now, I think that equation is broken now. I don't think that people in the middle classes actually have it in mind to vote Conservative anymore. I think that they've been turned off completely. So what the Tories are now trying to go for is the worst of us, essentially. What's the difference between the current direction of the Conservative Party and the leaflets that used to get put out by the National Front? I mean, this is a sort of recurring.
Don't get me started on that boat, Nick. I read what was happening yesterday, and it was what I thought would happen 2 weeks ago. There was bacteria found on it. Did you read that? Yeah, so they're kind of like bringing everybody off the boat again.
The only thing that you need to know about the boat is that it costs 20 times as much as putting somebody up in a hotel. And we're being told that they're putting the people on the boat in order to protect the taxpayers' money. It costs 20 times as much to put them up on that boat as it does to put them up in a hotel. So I think that's the only thing you need to know. So it's obviously not for the money. So what's it for?
He was talking in a panel, wasn't he, a while ago, the Prime Minister, and he was not heckled, but he was cornered by this very intelligent lady. I can't remember what panel it was, Nick. It was about a month ago, and she was trying to corner him on the language that he used, this word invasion, and I just think. And she was saying, it's inflammatory and it's insightful, and it's bad language. And he just this is a man that kind of is at the top of government. He's got the top seat in our country, and he's using words like that to describe vulnerable people. I just think there's something it's dreadfully gone wrong with our government.
Yeah. I can't disagree with that. I think that he presents himself as a nice and decent, almost a helpless person with his little pleading puppy dog eyes. I think he's a really nasty piece of work, and it seems hard to believe that after everything that's happened to us, that I think this, but he is the worst Prime Minister that I've ever known. And that includes this guy.
Yeah. Wait.
And this one.
Absolutely.
I mean, incredible. The worst. What have we done to deserve it? I wish I could remember, because it must have been really awful.
This is LBC with Nick Abbott.
A big sack of monkey nuts.
A big sack of monkey nuts. That's what we're dealing with. Most certainly. Gary says the veteran soldier who was homeless on a Brixton street that was being described by a caller earlier on in this show, and the Afghan interpreter crossing the channel in a dinghy have both served in the interests of the UK government. Well, that's true. Good point, Gary. Barnet. Hello, Danny.
Hello, good evening, Danny.
No, you're Danny.
Yes. Are you related to Diana Abbott?
What?
With the amount of rubbish you're spewing out this evening.
No, me and Diane Abbott, not related.
Well, you've got a real hatred towards the government. I understand.
Yes, I
you
have.
agree with them.
Yes.
But some of the things you're putting out are so distorted from the truth, it's shocking.
Right, correct me.
Number one is junior doctors. How much do they get paid? Let's have a complete breakdown of what they get paid. They won't do that. They won't tell you how much they have to give for their pension, how much they give to the union leaders. They don't tell you that. They'll just tell you what they take home at the end of the week.
Right, well, they take home about 25% less than they used to about 10 years ago, something like that.
You what? They used to get £20,000 and now that they get less money? Or are you talking about because of inflation?
Yes.
There's a big difference.
Well, because of inflation, of course.
Inflation. A lot of people have gone down because of inflation.
Right, so that makes it a good thing?
No, inflation is an unfortunate situation. I've lost out because of inflation. If everybody wants to keep up the way of living when inflation goes up, then somebody's actually losing out a very lot of money because of it.
No, that's not the case. No, if you don't increase your wages in line with inflation, then you're getting a pay cut. Why should junior doctors have a pay cut?
If I'm running a small business and I've now got to give everybody more money because of inflation, I'm now got to put up all my prices, don't I?
Well, that's inflation.
Yeah, so therefore, I'm causing more inflation. That's all inflation does, is it creates more inflation. Unfortunately, the inflation hasn't been a natural inflation. It's been caused because of three issues. COVID and the war in Ukraine are the main two reasons of the inflation.
That's COVID, and the war in Ukraine. Well, there's Brexit.
There's no proof to say that Brexit has caused it. It's very easy because Brexit took place just before COVID. It's very, very hard for the economics to say whether Brexit has been a cause of inflation or not.
It isn't. It isn't hard for them at all, because all they have to do is look at what happened to the rest of the world, who also had COVID and the war in Ukraine.
It's amazing. It's amazing you haven't mentioned that America has just lost by two of the companies, their AAA rating. They're only AA plus now. We don't speak about the other economies around the world that have been hit terribly at the moment, do we?
Well, America is doing significantly better than we are.
No, they're not.
They absolutely are. Danny, look it up.
Yes, they've lost a AAA rating over the last 2 weeks.
That is completely irrelevant. You're talking about the economy. The Americans' economy is just flying at the moment. We are in the doldrums, as you must know, surely.
I really think you should find some facts out before you
These are the facts, Danny. You're the one that is misinformed. Just read about it and then call back. Painful. This is a columnist in The Guardian called Gabby Hinsliff. Doctors were the kids who always came top of the class in school, and while they expected the job to be stressful, they probably never dreamed they'd end up worrying about the cost of putting the heating on. They want what they feel they're owed, which is the life they would be living if wages had kept pace with 2008 levels. But also, perhaps, in some ways, the lives that their parents had. Ones where a career like medicine would be hard work but rewarding, while doing well at school reliably paid off, and where someone in a good professional job could take home ownership pretty much for granted. On a junior doctor's salary of 15 grand in the 1980s, they were able to buy a London flat for 50 grand. Now the equivalent salary might be £35,000, but the same flat costs £600,000. Meanwhile, junior doctors are starting out 6 figures deep in debt for medical degrees that previous generations didn't have to pay for. Why the hell should they put up with that? The feeling that life is somehow going backwards is widely shared not just by other young public sector workers, teachers, civil servants, social workers, legal aid lawyers, but also the private sector workers squeezed by soaring rents, painfully expensive childcare, and, lately, rocketing inflation. It's just that junior doctors have the confidence, and thanks to the fact that lives depend on their work, the political clout to push back. The promise of Britain used to be the assumption that kids would be better off than their parents. Yeah, you remember that? What's become clear is the painful long-term consequences for the young of a crash followed by sluggish growth and falling living standards compounded by an asset bubble pushing up housing costs. The young got a raw deal in part because it was assumed that they wouldn't vote. Hey, wake up call, kids. You keep getting screwed over because you don't vote. The strikes have shown that voting is not necessarily the only way of exerting influence. The problem that junior doctors have is that they are they're fighting with a government that doesn't appear to be actually interested in solving this problem. That's the big issue here. If we were working with a government that had the best interests of the country in mind, then they would have more of a chance to get what they want. But if you're fighting against somebody to solve a problem that the other side isn't interested in solving, then that it presents a difficulty. The columnist says, what makes junior doctors particularly powerful is that as highly skilled workers, they have options. Their qualifications are sought after in Canada and Australia, where salaries aren't just higher, but potentially stretch to a nicer way of life. Decamp to Sydney, and you can spend your days off surfing in the sunshine. Or you could just stay in rainy Britain, where Rishi Sunak was in April reminiscing about buying his first flat in an interview with the website Conservative Home, while simultaneously confirming that national targets to build more houses, one of the few tools for boosting affordable supply, are being scrapped because grassroots Tories objected. The big immediate risk to government, however, isn't youthful emigration to countries offering brighter prospects than struggling, sulking post-Brexit Britain. It's older voters revolting as the consequences of industrial unrest work their way through the system. That's right. That equation is being upended. It used to be fairly reliable that the older you get, the more likely you are to vote Conservative, and that's what they have relied on. Even to the point that they haven't really done right by pensioners. I mean, we have one of the meanest state pensions in the first world in this country. So they haven't been generous to them by any means. But they can pretty much rely on the older you get, the more likely you are to vote Tory. And you get over the age of 65, and you're almost certain to vote Conservative. That's pretty much the only people that voted for him in the last general election. 65-plus-year-old men. That's it. Well, the equation is broken now because those people that are in that or coming towards that age range, they haven't found that it's possible to own their own homes. Or if they have, they're just barely struggling, just barely getting by, running furiously on the spot, getting nowhere. So those people that amassed savings and amassed wealth who could be relied on to vote Tory for their own self-interest, they're not there anymore. They're shuffling off the conveyor belt of life, and they're not being replaced. I think that quite shortly, unless they can really ramp up the rhetoric about, we're being invaded and the small boat people and it'll be, the same old refrain. They'll be bringing out the hits. If it's not the small boat people this week, then it'll be the benefits cheats. And if it's not the benefits cheats, then it'll be, I don't know, it's just too painful to contemplate. Single mothers, and, they'll just be going through the old hits. What, that didn't work? Well, let's try another one. You didn't like that one? Okay, here's another hate group to throw your ire at. That's the desperation that they are looking at. That's why they're furiously trying to bring up and create monsters for you to be frightened about. They want you to be angry, so angry that you lose touch with reality, like that last guy that I was talking to. Talking about America losing its AAA rating. What difference does that make to the average American who is not suffering the kind of inflation rate that we are in this country, who is being paid probably twice as much in every comparable job as we're getting paid, and whose housing costs half the price? They're doing just fine. 0345 6060 973. Let's have Hackney. Richard.
Nick.
Richard.
I think you're right. I think it was a pollster who said that the average age of the Conservative Party is dead.
Yes. Yeah.
But why I'm phoning in is that we seem to have got our metrics a bit confused. We seem to be measuring things by how much it would cost to pay junior doctors. And I think that if we paid them what they asked, 35%, it would be £1 billion.
Yeah, which is the amount that has cost the government so far in covering for the junior doctors striking. So that the government is okay paying that, just like throwing it at the private health contractors. Yeah. They don't mind that at all.
No. Or as I like to think of it, 300 asylum seekers on the Bibby Stockholm.
Yeah.
So we've had 30 go in, and then they came out.
Counted them in, and we counted them all back out again, yeah.
We shook it all about, yeah. So that's what, I'm guessing that's 100 million quid's worth that we've had so far.
It's £1,100 per person per night to put them up on that Bibby Stockholm floating prison, as opposed to 50 quid a night in a hotel.
Right. Now, I don't want to bring Dido Harding into it.
Uh-oh.
But,
I
mean, it was 44 billion.
And what did we get for that? I'm still not entirely sure how it is possible to lose that much money on something that doesn't work.
But I'm just thinking that would pay the junior doctors' salary expectations from now until each and every one of them retired.
Right.
But what makes me cross is we always talk about this thing of like, where's the money coming from? We don't have any money. We have to. So when we say like, we're spending £1,000 a night on asylum seekers, but veterans are going homeless in the street.
Yeah.
So we need to focus on veterans going homeless, but then middle-class children can't get a house. So we need to focus on that. But we never say, well, hang on, hedge fund managers are building double-storey garages to house their collection of antique Porsches.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we could tax them a little bit more.
Tax hedge funders.
Warning.
I think that police will shortly be bursting through your front door, Richard,
I think
spraying gunfire.
Oh, my God, I can hear Jacob Rees-Mogg in the distance. He's closing in on me.
My view.
Yeah.
It's just, we always go round, and it's always like, which of the poor downtrodden people will we pick on today to
and what's extraordinary is, what's extraordinary is
you're not paying your fair share.
Right. What's amazing to me is that people who have nothing are gullible enough to blame their problems on people who have nothing. I mean, come on. Wake up, sheeple. It's later than you think. All right, I've got to go. Thanks, Richard. 0345 6060 973.
This is LBC with Nick Abbott. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Alexa, send a comment to LBC.
0345 6060 973. Lazarus texts, if Sunak reckons that the country's top priority is to stop the boats, what happened to reducing inflation? That's not a priority, I guess. Winning, says Lazarus. Adam says, I mean, inflation is going to come down, so they say, regardless of what the government does. The government is what's the word? What's the word when you can't, do it?
Disgusting.
Is impotent. Impotent in that regard. Impotent. Adam texts, I went to a private school and I'm stacking shelves in a supermarket and I still make more than a junior doctor. Heston. Isaac.
Hello again, Nick, yeah?
Isaac.
Yes, match of the day is finished, so now I've decided to come over to you.
Excellent.
Right. Two quick things.
Mm-hmm.
First one, you made you said, I've heard this said before, as people get older, they tend to vote right-wing or Tory, okay?
In the past, yes, because they have acquired property and they've got savings and so on, and they want to protect it, and they think that that's what the Tories will do for them. But I think that equation is broken.
Oh, in the past, okay. Because what I was going to say is, I'm nearly 65 myself.
65 years old?
Yeah. And a few weeks ago, I voted Labour all my life. And a few weeks ago, I discovered Karl Marx.
Oh, yeah.
I absolutely love it, So, anyway.
Well, you don't have to go the full Karl Marx. All you have to do is go to Copenhagen or somewhere like that, Finland, or, one of those, the perfect blonde people, and see that. Spreading the wealth around. I'm not talking about communism, which has never really worked anywhere it's ever been tried, because it's never really been tried, communism. Yeah. So I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about a slightly more equitable distribution of the wealth that we all create. And that leads to HAPPY-ness among the population. And what is the point if it is not to maximise happiness? Life.
Yeah. Yeah. Final point. Final thing I want to say. Right. Every week, okay, this government is coming up with these crackpot ideas. Yeah. Last night, okay, I mentioned, they could come up with a crackpot idea of building a wall in the middle of a channel. You know what I mean?
Right.
Right, I've got another one for them.
Uh-oh.
These barges, okay, which they've spent, God knows how many billions on.
Yeah.
They could move those barges next door to the Houses of Parliament, and the MPs could have the rooms as second homes.
We could park it out there to act as a deterrent for any of them continuing along their current lines. Yes, with its own punishment block. Good idea, Isaac. Let's make it happen. Thanks a lot, mate. 0345 6060 973. Mark texts, Rishi is going to re-educate the poorly educated. You are re-educated when you agree that he is 6 foot tall. When he's 6 foot tall, full of integrity, honesty, sincerity, and all of his priorities are your priorities, especially the small boats.
This government will have integrity, professionalism, and accountability at every level.
Absolutely.
Yeah, not. 0345 6060 973. Let's have a call. Let's see, who shall we have? Eeny, meeny, miny. Devon, Julie.
Hello, Nick. How are you?
I am great, mate.
Good. It's been a bit of an uphill struggle tonight. It's all gone crazy, hasn't it?
It's not really what I wanted to talk about when I came in, but, sometimes this show just gets away from me.
Oh, well, it can happen to the best of us, so I wouldn't worry about it. For me, I listen and I just think there's so many working class people, working class roots, and with the free market and lots of opportunity out there, entrepreneurs, I can't say that, entrepreneurs, and you just think to yourself, like, can they not remember? Can they not remember the NHS, what they grew up with, what they needed?
Well, it's
how
not
it
that
works
far.
for us all.
You don't have to remember that far back. It was only 13
No.
years ago.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And even these people, like, they'd rather buy, they're doing well in the free market and they're all for it and they feel it's like, the conservative way and not necessarily capitalism, but, it's where they prosper, and they'd rather buy a second home than maybe pay for some private treatment. So, but then, they use the NHS, but they're down on it, and you think, well, you can't have it both ways.
Even if they don't use the NHS personally, their workers will rely on the NHS. So they make their money by relying on the things that the state provides. So, but they don't. It's like they don't think about that. So as the things that the state provides get degraded, so does their ability to make money. But that's long-term thinking, and nobody thinks long-term. Short-termism is what will do for humankind, and probably climate change is the thing that will really do it for us, assuming that we don't all, like blow ourselves up in the meantime. Happy thoughts.
I don't know what the answers are. I, like you, can see, but I don't understand why the people are in denial or...
Well, I think the era of being in denial seems to be coming to an end. I mean, just look at the polling. And you'd have to assume that even though a lot of people don't think that, Keir Starmer is it, then that the Labour Party is their perfect party, I think if we deviate just a small amount from the direction that we're going at the moment, then like parting lines from one locus, you'll find that some way down the line, we're massively apart from where we would have been if we'd, if those lines had been parallel.
Yes, get off that road. Yes.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, get off the road. Yeah.
Nick, you're in charge of driving the bus. Please take us off to the left or right.
All right,
no, the
okay.
left,
Well, hold tight. Thanks a lot, Julie. 0345 6060 973. It's going to be a bumpy ride. Let's have Gwent Patrick.
Yes, Nick, how are you, mate? All right?
All right, thanks.
Yeah, the last time I spoke to you was the contract testing days. Anyway, listen, I'm not going to keep you. I've got a long way. I'm just concerned about the people that's on the boat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, how do they manage for catering and stuff? Because
how do they manage for what?
Like for the... Is it right? Say, for instance, is it a working ship?
Is it a working ship?
Yeah, what I mean is, like the catering, if you went onto a ship now then, and the catering is on, the kitchens and everything are open and so on, yeah?
Yeah.
So what's the crack here then? What do they have to allocate people jobs and so on? All the chefs and the washer up and so on. No, I'm serious.
I have no idea. I would imagine not. No, I wouldn't think that they'd be staffing it themselves. No.
It's just going to be a bit of carnage on there. Otherwise, I would have thought.
Well, it sounds like a recipe for disaster, and it sounds to me like you're giving the government ideas.
No. Hey, the government, they should be ashamed of them. Well, they should be ashamed of themselves anyway. But I just feel for them people on that boat. They've gone from one extreme to another, really.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, how do they manage? Is it a boat that's open with they've got chefs on there and the kitchen's there, and you go down and have your dinner and so on?
I'm not sure chefs would be an accurate description, but they'll probably have cooks. They'll have people that heat stuff up, no doubt. But I'm sure that full details will be released in due course. Thanks a lot, Patrick. That's it. Thanks for your teats. Thanks so much for your teats. So productive. And so on, particularly to the ones I couldn't get around to. So sad. What a pity, never mind. 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 What a pity, never mind.